Found a squash echinoid here. There's squash echinoid here, but it's not very good. Somewhere.
That's a
Echinoid.
echinoid. It's just a lump of
bit of bone bed. Here we have all the fossils gathered from 2 expeditions to a quarry just outside of Wotton-under-Edge. 2 expeditions resulted in the collection of 5 echinoid specimens, 1 belemnite specimen, and 20 bivalve and brachiopoid specimens. Specimens vary in preservation from very well preserved to partially preserved to not very well preserved at all. These 5 echinoids belong to the Clypeus genus. I'm not sure on the exact species. I believe them to either belong to C. plotti, C. angustiporus, or C. devaustianus. This specimen has the best preservation, being almost completely intact and having very little deformity. Using a lupe, more detail can be made out on the surface of the fossil. These small holes are what remains of the spines of the sea urchin. The bottom of the echinoid is not very well preserved. This specimen has very little preserved, although the section that is preserved is very well preserved. This section of echinoid has very well preserved spines. The specimen is very poorly preserved, with very little of the original fossil remaining. There is not much to be seen on the poorly preserved echinoid using a lupe. However, the base is comparatively well preserved. This specimen is decently preserved, although it is rather deformed as it is comparatively thick relative to the rest of the specimens, and the center point right here is not actually in the center of the fossil. This crushed echinoid has well preserved spines. a very thick profile. This is the most poorly preserved specimen, with a very small chunk of the original fossil being left. A small piece of echinoid is only a few spines. The belemnite is very well preserved, however it broke into 3 segments during preparation. It is only the tip of the original specimen, as there is a trough left here when the most of it broke off during fossilization. You can see the belemnite using the lupe. It is not at all crushed, it is still 3-dimensional. And although it has been partially prepared, it can still be prepared out of the matrix with more time. Here are 2 Trigona bivalves of different species. The more well-preserved one has lots of detail and also has a negative where it was broken off. The other Trigona bivalve is of a different species and has a lot less detail. Using a lupe, the ribs of the bivalve can be clearly seen. As well as the base. Of the first Trigona can be seen extra detail on the lupe, and actually contains a small geode. Not much detail can be seen under the less well preserved Trigona using a lupe. This block contains at least 5 brachiopods and/or bivalves. Also, it is partially crystallized. Here is the block of brachiopods and/or bivalves. Here you can see the crystallized structure. These crystals are slightly photoluminescent, so they react with ultraviolet light. This block contains many bivalves, brachiopods, and possibly even gastropods of various different genera. Here is the block of mixed brachiopods, bivalves, and possibly gastropods. It is almost the consistency of a bone bed, where the entire rock or nodule is completely composed of shells. Here is a small brachiopod of unknown genera. Here is the small brachiopod. This block contains 3 brachiopod specimens. Here is the block of 3 brachiopods. Here is a large, partially preserved brachiopod. Here is the partially preserved brachipod. Here is a large, poorly preserved bivalve. I'm unsure of the genera, but unlike most bivalves, it is elongated perpendicular to the hinge. Here is the elongated bivalve. Here's a small, well-preserved brachipod with a very well-preserved mouth border. Here is the small brachipod. Here is a large, partially preserved brachipod with a very well-preserved mouth border. Here is the partially preserved brachipod. Large, partially preserved brachipod. Here is the partially preserved brachipod. Here is another well-preserved brachipod with a partially intact mouth border. Here is the large, partially preserved brachipod, a very well-preserved hinge, and a partially preserved mouth border. Here is a small, poorly preserved brachipod. Here is the poorly preserved brachipod. Here is a block containing at least 4 brachipod specimens, with one large one on the end, 2 on top of it on this side, and 1 on top of it on this side. Here is the brachipod in the block. Here are some other specimens fossilized alongside it. Large, poorly preserved and crushed brachipod. The parietal and brachial valves no longer line up. Here is the crushed brachipod. This brachipod also has a negative. This is one of the smallest brachipod specimens. It is of a different species than all the others. It's got a very uniform mouth border. However, it does still have the difference in, I believe, the foot or the joint of the 2 valves, which puts it into brachipod instead of bivalve. Here is the small brachiopod. very uniform mouth border. Is a large, poorly preserved brachipod which has split perpendicular to the mouth border after fossilization, which is quite rare as they usually split parallel to the mouth border. Here is a well-preserved brachiopod. The mouth border is in not very good condition. Is a large block containing many bivalve and brachipod specimens, all of unknown genera, with one well-preserved specimen on the end. Here is the large block of unprepared bivalves and or brachiopods. Is a very well preserved block of 3 brachiopods and a bivalve, with one brachipod on the end here, one in the middle, and possibly one on the end, with one bivalve in the middle. Here is the well preserved brachipod and bivalve block. As you can see, due to the shape of this end piece, there may be a brachipod inside it. There is a brachipod on the end here. There is a brachipod in the middle. And a bivalve in the middle. Here are the tools used in this video. I have a trusty geohammer. It's a great all-rounder for collecting fossils. I have a lupe, which is a handheld magnifying glass. It also has normal and ultraviolet light. This is a pneumatic air pen called a trilobite. It is the beginner tool from Zoic Paleotech. It has a titanium carbide stylus and is by far the best beginner tool available. I highly recommend it. If there is any video topic you'd like to see from me, please suggest it in the comments. Thank you.